John White here with the LK10 Community, and I'm with two good friends of mine. And we're going to talk today just for a little bit about the topic of how listening to Jesus can sometimes lead us in really creative connections with not yet Christians, not yet followers of Jesus. So both Kent and Tony have a great story about that. Tony, I think I'll start with you. Tony Daniels is the LK10 coordinator for Spanish-speaking folks, South America especially, but also people in Tennessee and other places. So, Tony, again, if you want to say just a word about what you're doing, and then tell us the story that you told earlier. It's a great story.
Great. Right now I'm just training church planters in South America, but the story takes place when I was in Uruguay a few years ago, and I was listening to Jesus about really what we needed to do to move into our community and bring the hope and joy that we had been learning. And I sensed him really strongly tell us that we needed to do training workshops in nonprofit environments. And so ended up in a school doing a training with teachers, English teachers, all Uruguayans who taught English, and very mixed group. And I really was taking LK10 into that environment, doing listener, not that at all, doing check-in and listening. And because we were working on creating trust in their work teams, they had brought me into the school to create trust in the work environment. So I thought that no better way to create trust than teach them the skills.
Was this a Christian school that you were doing this in?
It was a Christian school, but the English teachers are not hired based on their beliefs. So I was warned that most of them were not Christians. They were hired on their credentials.
Gotcha.
So I was to be very sensitive. So, but I brought in check in and listen and introduce them to those concepts. And it was amazing the results I had, because of course I was wondering, how am I going to do this with people that are atheists? And so I honestly said, if you believe in God and you have a relationship with the divine, then please listen to him during this time. But if you don't, then I just encourage you to listen to yourself and your own soul, whatever is stirring. You probably have a lot going on that you haven't listened to in a while anyway. So gave them 10 or 15 minutes to listen and then debrief. And after the session, a girl came up to me, a young girl, probably 25, and she was almost panicked. And she said, "You have to tell me what just happened to me." And I said, "Well, tell me what happened. I have no idea." And she said, "Well, I've been an atheist all my life. I've opened to the idea of believing in God just recently because of my studies in school. But I can't explain what just happened." She said, "When you told me to listen, I just started listening, and I saw this beautiful blue glowing ball floating in front of me that was just vibrant and gorgeous." And she just starts, tears just start falling. And I said, "Well, how did you feel? And, what do you think that was?" And she said, "I felt deeply loved. And I don't know what that was. That's why I'm asking you to tell me what just happened to me." And I just said, I really believe that was the God of the universe inviting you into a relationship with him because he loves you. And she started bawling at that point and said, "I believe you're right." And she collapsed into my arms. And it was just an amazing moment of going, wow, if people can get quiet in a safe environment, I think God really is calling lots of people to believe in him, even in secular places like that where not many people are allowed to talk about God.
That's a great story, Tony. We might call that a power encounter, where the Lord reveals himself in all kinds of ways that we wouldn't expect to somebody who was not yet a believer, and yet that probably was the transformational moment for that person. Very cool. Good. Kent, you told us a story a little bit earlier today that I thought was just really cool. You are the LK10 coordinator in Southern California, vineyard pastor, and one of the hats you wear, if I can use that term, around Christmas time. Tell us about that.
Okay, yeah. So they call me in Southern California now Father Christmas. And how that was launched was I had a home group for a number of years, and a couple started coming to the home group, and the wife had been an artist, had trained as an artist, was a home school teacher, and had had an experience where she was shut down as an artist. But in the context of the group and the community and the relationship and listening to God and listening to each other, she started getting reactivated as an artist. And so as she started processing that in her life, God spoke to her and said, I want you to start painting paintings about Malachi, where it talks about turning the hearts of the fathers to the children. And so she wanted to paint different paintings. Well, I actually just found this out the other day. I didn't really know all this until just recently, but and then she was thinking about, well, what are the different father images in culture? And one of them was Father Christmas. And so she decided to initiate making a costume, because she's also a professional costume designer. So she made a costume for me in order that she could paint a painting of Father Christmas. So that's what's kicked the ball off. But at the same time, God spoke to her and told her that I was Father Christmas of Narnia, that I was representing that out of the Chronicles of Narnia stories. So anyway, as it's unfolded over the last 5 years now, I've done this Father Christmas thing at our church, and then out of that, somebody passed a card to the Mission San Juan in Southern California, who has this big event every year, and I was hired by them to be Father Christmas. So every year now, the last 3 years, I've been working in this community, in this place, with long lines of people from all different faiths and all different experiences coming to have their children blessed by Father Christmas.
And Kent, you have this whole costume, right? I mean, they're great pictures. We'll post those.
Dramatically beautiful costume this lady designed for me, and then she created one for my wife, and then I have these because it's that sort of fantasy world. We have these elves, but they're like Lord of the Rings elves, and it's just a interesting fit in our culture, and there seems to be a good response to it. And but I have the freedom in this setting to bless the children, and so having lots of fun transferring joy by looking into their eyes and just speaking blessing over these children as and then the families take pictures and all that, like traditional Santa Claus. But then it just keeps unfolding. The same gal that designed the costume runs a homeschool school, but the school is not per se a Christian. It's a multi religious environment and cultural environment that's supported by different kinds of charter school funds. And so anyway, basically what we did is she had a big banquet, and I was Father Christmas for the banquet. And so I was able to come in as Father Christmas of Narnia, and we celebrated the fact that the appearance in the Chronicles of Narnia story of Father Christmas was that it was breaking the curse that it was always winter and never Christmas, but that the sign that I'd come was that curse was beginning to be broken, and the witch was going to be defeated, and so as we gather together in this feast with all these kids, I had them all stand up, and they're all shouting, "Long live King Aslan!" And then I was able to bless them with indestructible joy and peace that would never be shaken, that Aslan was bringing to the land. And it was a delightful time. Well, exciting little fruit of that was that that after we did this little event, some of the families that were not Christian families at all came up to the director of the school and said, "That was wonderful. Who was that man that did Father Christmas?" And she told them that I was her pastor, and one of these families said, "Well, I want to go to your church then. I really like that." And it was just a wonderful environment to be able to impact families and impact children with the vision that we have for releasing vibrant families of Jesus in our culture. So
That's great. And so the
Amazing. Just for everyone to know, John, it's on Facebook, Father Christmas Blessing, if they want to check it out.
yes, yeah, that's great. And so just a piece you told us earlier, Kent, was that in the context of the school, they were not allowed to say religious terms. And you couldn't talk about Jesus,
Right.
couldn't talk about God and all that kind of stuff. Say a word.
That's right. In fact, the administrator of the school came up to me right before I came to the feast to do this and said, be very, very careful. Do not use any religious language. Legally we can't do that and all that. But to be able to use the Chronicles of Narnia, which is, kind of, I guess you could say, parabolic language, whatever, and to know that it would be accepted, and it was. In fact, some of the people specifically from the charter schools were there. Officials from the charter schools were there and came up and said, "Well, that was wonderful. We love that. No problem." Da, 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 da. So, because there just was a sense of being able to communicate and not control or manipulate anybody that didn't come from a Christian worldview. So I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's one of the vehicles that's in a sense been released into our culture that opens doors and does it in a way that allows people to make their choice as to, do I want to come into this deeper? And obviously it's already bearing little fruit with that one family. Yeah. Yes, I want to go to your church. I mean, that's a big step right there.
And you said that you for each child, as they would sit on your lap, you would look into their eyes and you would say some things to them, but you would bless them in the name of Aslan, right?
Right. Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
That's so cool. So,
and honestly, in some settings, I could even, like at the mission in San Juan, it's a Catholic mission, and there I can get away with literally saying, I bless you in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I mean, it depends on the context and the sensitivity to people, but they're receptive to that in that context as well. So,
amen.
Yeah.
So, what's the point of all of this? For a lot of us who've grown up in the church, evangelism looked like sort of an obligation that we have, and we have these four spiritual laws or tools that we use, and for some folks, myself, it was really hard work. We would go door to door, we'd do all kinds of things, and it wasn't something that created a lot of joy. Often a sense of obligation, or I don't think I really want to do that. What we're saying in Luke 10 is that really the whole Christian life, whether we're doing church or we're thinking of people who don't know Jesus yet, that it all flows out of listening to Jesus. Our belief is that he is more concerned for the world out there, for people who don't know him yet, than we will ever be. And if we listen to him and follow his directions, he gives us some very creative ways of relating to those folks. So this year, 2017, we want to begin in Luke 10 to that. So Tony and Kent, thank you so much for those wonderful stories. So, and if you guys who are watching this video have other stories, let us know, and we'll share those as well. Any closing comments, Tony or Kent?
No, it's wonderful. It's fun.
Okay, good. Thanks, friends.
I just
Bye for now.
say, long live
Yeah.
King Aslan.
Yes. Amen.